All right, guys, let's get to our next topic. It is brought to us by FanDuel. The NFL season is here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready to kick off with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if that $5 bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So if you're ready to play, right now is the right time to join FanDuel. Just download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com/UCSS to get started. That is FanDuel.com/UCSS to place your first $5 bet. All right, guys, I got a 5-pack of stats to get to for you guys today. Some of these, especially the kicker ones, come via True Media. Shout out to Jason's guy over at True Media for helping us.
By the way, before you get into the kicker, Mike, Didi texted me and said the Browns should sign Ben Souls. Apparently, he's from Ohio. Apparently, he was the kicker at Pitt, and he had the competition. He was the competition for Chris Boswell. Obviously, Chris Boswell wasn't going to lose his job, but
where is
she
he
said
now?
he was awesome. He's cut.
Free agent.
He's a free agent. Ben Souls.
Name to watch.
From I never heard of this town in Ohio, so I'm guessing it's not anywhere near here, but maybe you guys have heard of it.
What is it?
Let's see. It's sorry, Mike, I screwed up by not being prepared for this. He played for the Pitt. He's from Tip City, Ohio.
Oh, Tip City.
Yeah, I know.
Where's Tip City?
That's we have a U.S. president from there.
Andrew Garfield.
No,
Grover Cleveland.
maybe Harrison.
Tippy
Canoe.
And
See
he
where
went to
he's from.
Tippy Canoe High School.
Yes.
I believe there's more presidents from Ohio
You are
than any
correct.
other state.
You are
but they were
correct.
all many, many moons ago.
Some people
we haven't had one in a long time.
Yeah.
Some people call Atlanta Tip City. If you know, you know.
Yeah, I know.
That was good. All right, guys,
All right,
5
Mike.
stats that you need to know for this game against the Ravens. The first is not kicker-related. The second and third are directly correlated to the kicker, though the first stat has to do with some new wrinkles we saw in the offense in Week 1. Last year, in 2024, the Browns used motion on just 37.9% of their snaps. That ranked 31st in the NFL. Only one team used motion fewer than the Browns last year at the snap. However, in Week 1 against Cincinnati, that went from 37.9% all the way up to 70.5%. That was the third most motion at the snap of any team in the NFL in Week 1. How did that impact the Browns' success? Well, the EPA on the plays they ran with motion at the snap was a 0.08. Anything positive via EPA is good. Anything negative is bad. On the plays without motion, the EPA dropped from 0.08 to minus 0.22, a pretty significant drop-off between the plays with motion and the plays without motion. The Browns, like I said, second fewest motion at the snap in the entire league last year. Week 1, small sample size, but ranked third in the NFL. A nice little wrinkle from Kevin Stefanski and his offensive staff.
Yeah, I asked Zach Jackson about that because Mike was trying to give credit to Tommy Rees for that. And he said it really doesn't have anything to do with Tommy Rees, that it was just that's what he wants to do. I can't. What were the motion numbers like from 2020 and 2021?
Yeah, I'd like to know that
It's
too.
been low
how
under
they compared.
Stefanski.
You don't need them back then.
I think it was high. I think it was higher.
It was higher, and then it got to its lowest point with Dorsey. Dorsey used no pre-snap motion.
I mean, Ken's. Don't even get me started. Just run as far as you can. I'm going to throw it as far as I can.
Yeah.
And let's see if this works.
You know, the motion stuff.
It didn't.
The motion
It did
stuff
not.
needs to be in the playbook, and the reason why you run motion like that is because you have to give the defense something to slow them down. If you just want to line up, the Cleveland Browns aren't good enough at running back or at the offensive line to just line up in regular stuff. And just
Isn't
run
it
at
also a
somebody.
tell if you're in man or zone?
Yeah,
So
Absolutely.
there's benefits to do it if you're on offense.
You want them to have to read some sort of keys. You want to say, hey, well, at least you got to respect that. Like, you got to respect the jet motion. It may not seem like much, but you want to put them in a position where they at least have to value some of these other things where you can get something off of that. So they have to do those things to give themselves an opportunity if you're deficient at certain positions.
It's the difference of being aggressive or passive on offense. Regardless of what the play ends up being called, I just think when you do things like that to garner information from what the defense is in, I think that's just aggressive. That's foot on the pedal, not on the brake. And I like stuff like that.
It's one game. I wouldn't get carried away with one game. At the same time, I'd be curious to know what the numbers were during Joe's 5 starts a couple years ago, because I think a lot of this has to do with the quarterback and the trust in the quarterback.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Is it also the defense? I mean, the Bengals
were in two
are
high safety look
and
Yes,
they have
yes.
a young defense, whereas the Ravens are more of a veteran defense. We'll see.
Yeah,
if
some
the
defenses
defense
might
is
be
a
more
good point.
susceptible.
Yeah.
The Bengals were in a lot of 2 high safety last week. I don't know if I think Baltimore.
Right, they didn't want Joe to throw over the top.
Yeah, so I don't know if Baltimore will play that same way or not, but I think a lot of that was probably to try and shake something loose from Cincinnati's side to get a peek at what they were in. I think a lot of it has to do with just the trust between play caller and quarterback.
And the respect they have for Joe. If Joe says, "I really like that," then let's give you plays that you feel comfortable with.
We'll see. It'll be something to monitor as the year goes on.
It's just something to watch.
Yeah.
Just a nice little sprinkle.
I think these
of
things
motion.
vary week to week. Like you said, since he's in 2 high safeties, okay, well, let's take what they're going to give us. And that's what good coaches do.
When Kevin was really cooking as a play caller, I think it was a lot of pre-snap motion, a lot of misdirection, a lot of you think we're going here, we're going there.
Right.
So, and I think they're getting back to that this year, so we'll see.
I think it'll dictate what the Ravens want to do. Last week I said Joe's going to have to hit a couple deep shots. I think the Bengals thought that way too. They said, no, you're not going to do that. Now, the Ravens are a little more aggressive. I'm anxious to see what the game plan is from Stefanski as to what they think they're going to give Flacco.
Let's get to the next one, even though this next one is really 2. It goes correlated together, and it's about the kicking conundrum in Cleveland. So True Media pulled these stats, so shout out to True Media. But since Kevin Stefanski took over in 2020, so we're going back to 2020, the left side of your screen are the Browns' averages on certain kicks. On the right side of your screen is the NFL average. As you can see, the Browns just 78% on extra points under Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry during that tenure. The league average of that same time period is 85%. Field goals under 40, 88% for the Browns, 95% for the rest of the league. Between 40 and 49 yards, 69% for Cleveland, 79% for the rest of the league. And then the anomaly on 50-plus, the Browns at 71%, the rest of the league at 68%. However,
Man, I like the way
Dustin
you did that.
Hopkins
Yep.
went 8 for 8 in 2023 on 50-plus after not being able to. You take Hopkins out, they're below league average. Now, you may ask, sure, they're missing kicks, but is that impacting games? And, yeah, it is costing Cleveland games. Kevin Stefanski, since taking over as head coach of the Browns, is 15-6 in one-score games where the Browns have not missed a kick. So no missed kicks. He is 15-6 in one-score games. In one-score games where his kicker has missed a kick via an extra point, a field goal, any kind of missed kick, they go from 15-6 to 8-15.
But I'm sure every team has similar numbers.
Yeah, but
to
when
that,
you're
right?
among the worst.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
It's more.
That's
often.
why.
It happens
That's
more
why.
often.
That's why it matters.
And then in one-score losses, missed kicks have cost the Browns 2.2 points per game. That's an entire point above league average.
I mean,
league average of missed kicks in those losses, 1.2 the Browns at 2.2. Shout out to True Media for those stats.
Just competent kicking. If
Just
you are,
regular.
if
Just
you're
be average.
16th.
Yep.
17th. Where would they be? What would the record be?
Sure, you'd have more wins. I mean, it's common sense. It goes to what I said Monday about it's just dereliction of duty. It's not. You can't maintain an organization when you are not just a blip below league average.
You 10% almost.
That's a lot below league average.
Mike, do you have in there?
At the most important position in the game in terms of scoring.
They're like 31st and 32nd, aren't they, in the league in categories?
Oh, yeah, give me 1 sec. I have exactly where those numbers rank.
Like, it's not just bad. It's like
awful.
Worse than the league.
And because it is such, I know everybody poo-poos kicking, and I do too. And there's nothing that drives me more crazy when you lose a game because of a kicker. This is a gladiator sport. This shouldn't be soccer where it's decided by kicks. But it is. I didn't make up the rules. The Browns know what the rules are. So do the other teams. Mm-hmm. You value a kicker. And I know they've drafted guys and they've spent resources on trying to get this right. The fact of the matter is they have not.
Here, I got the
And that's a dereliction of duty.
So these are the numbers you're looking for, Jason. The extra point percentage, and take this graphic full here real quick. The extra point percentage, 78%, that is dead last.
Yeah.
32nd out of 32 teams in the NFL. Field goals under 40, that 88% also ranks 32 out of 32. The 40 to 49 field goal range, 69%, that is 31st, so slight above the last place you could be. And then, like I said, they're 71% 50+. technically ranks 10th, but you take out the Hopkins year, and it drops down into the bottom third of the league. Also from True Media, the Browns under Kevin Stefanski, between missed field goals and extra points, have cost the team 112 points. That's the second most in the NFL, just behind Minnesota at 115. And last thing, Jay, real quick.
Okay.
Sunday marked Cleveland's 8th game under Stefanski with 4 or more points lost to missed kicks.
Oh, my God.
That is tied for the most in the NFL with Jacksonville since 2020.
I have a question for you, and I don't know if you have it, because these numbers were dug up to be specific to the Browns, but you are giving league averages. I'd love to see, going back to 2020, which teams rank 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
I only have the Cleveland
I know.
ones 'cause True
I
Media
figured you
pulled.
didn't, but I'd like to see.
Baltimore. Baltimore's up
well,
there,
Baltimore
clearly.
is. I imagine Kansas City would be
Probably,
high up that.
yeah.
So what I'm saying is, like, I know we talk about quarterbacks. It's clearly the most. I'm not going to make a case that kicker's more important than quarterback. What I'm saying is there is a correlation, I believe, between teams that have successful kickers and teams that have success. They lead the league in scoring every year. It's the most important
half the
position.
games in the league are 3 points or less.
This is totally damning. Because what it shows is we have placed an overemphasis in quarterback is important. But if any football player, any coach at any level will tell you, it's going to come down to penalties, turnovers, and the kicking game. If you're dead last in kicking,
You'd have no chance.
and then you're still at the bottom third in terms of penalties,
Yeah.
you can't win.
Now-
You can't win.
I don't have this. Like Jason, my guy at True Media just sent us these numbers without all the rankings. Maybe it's a 2% difference between 32 and 25. 25. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I do think that matters. Like if it's a 1 or 2% difference in 32.
But, you win in the margins.
Yeah, I know. But if we're talking just a couple of kicks, I don't know that's going to make that drastic of a difference in
Right.
the overall. But when you do look at those
Well,
numbers,
just go last year. Can you call up last year's kicking results?
Well,
where did Philly finish and where did Kansas City finish? I know Kansas City had kicking issues with health. And Butker, I don't think, was particularly great when he was even healthy. But, and I know that's a shorter term.
right.
I'd like to see a big sample size study done over, comparing the teams that make the playoffs with their kickers to the teams that miss the playoffs.
Well, here, just did you ask about last year?
Yeah, I don't know what the results are going to be, but I'm curious.
Here, this came from Jason, too, at True Media. I just lost it. Hang on. Sunday marked Cleveland's 8th game under Stefanski with 4+ points lost to
Mikey
missed kicks.
just gave that.
Okay. 4 games last year since the start of last season. So that was 3 last year.
Wow.
3 games last year, they lost 4+ points to missed kicks.
Yeah, I just don't see how you
Now,
win.
I don't know which 3 they were.
I don't know how you win unless you're just number one offensively by leaps and bounds. I don't know how you win, particularly in the playoffs where games are won in the margins. How are you winning a Super Bowl without when New England went on their run of Super Bowl kicks? They had a reliable kicker, particularly in the playoffs. He didn't miss.
So, Jay, you want to hear something?
I got it. Last year, the top 5 teams in field goal percentage. This does not correlate to winning.
Yeah, that's why I said I'd like to see a bigger sample. I'd like to see like a 10-year sample.
Last year, Tampa Bay was number 1, made the playoffs, lost in the first round.
They did.
Number 2, Chargers didn't make the playoffs. Number 3, Pittsburgh didn't make the playoffs. Number 4, Jacksonville, terrible. Number 5, Tennessee, terrible.
Awful, worse.
Number 6, Miami.
Didn't make the playoffs. Or did they?
They
they
were
did
terrible. Number 7, Detroit. Obviously, they were good. Arizona, 8, didn't make the playoffs. Denver,
Dallas
9.
wasn't in the top 8? That can't be right.
I'm looking at it.
No, wait.
NFL team field goal conversion
Aubrey
percentage.
was 40 of 47 last year. So
He had 7 misses last year. Wow,
miss 7
I was
kicks.
unaware of that.
He was the second-team All-Pro kicker, but he did miss.
Baltimore By the way,
rep.
Baltimore last year was 27th. Philadelphia.
Baltimore last year had
Tucker was a mess.
Yeah,
last year.
Philadelphia, the Super Bowl champion last year, was 25th.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I would like to see a bigger sample size.
The gap
that
between
could change year to year.
32 and 25 was big.
Okay,
because
that's
Philadelphia was 25 and they were 81%. The Browns were 32nd at 67%.
Okay. Oh my God.
Yeah, that is huge.
Is that? Wait, I got a question for you. Is
Yeah.
that bigger? It has to be bigger than the gap from 25 to 1.
Oh, for sure.
It's got to be double.
Mathematically, it has.
Let me
Double.
see.
Yeah, there's
Special
not enough
team
room for it to
offense.
be.
So number 1 in 2024 was 94%.
Okay, and they were 85?
And the Eagles were 81%.
Okay, so 13%.
Which is significant.
And then the Browns were 67%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopkins
which
was
is bigger.
Hopkins was objectively terrible.
So it's literally the difference between 25 and 1 was bigger than the difference between 25 and 32.
There were 3 teams below 75%.
And Bo, what that really tells me is you can be bad. Clearly, Philly wasn't great and still win. What you can't be is last by a mile. And that's what we've been.
So alone, it don't make that much of a difference. Like, it does make a difference, but it's when you accumulate it. If you say the kicking game is last, and then you say you have the 31st or 32nd rated quarterback, and then you say,
well, yeah, sure,
our turnovers are penalties. When you start to stack that against yourself, and you don't, and we just talk about, hey, our receivers are where, playmakers where, it paints a picture of you can't play this style of football and expect to win over a long haul or even the short term. You just can't do it. It's just not possible.
All right, next final two stats here, more just interesting nuggets I found on the Ravens that I thought were worth bringing up for you guys. I call this one Jekyll and Harbaugh. He's 26-8 in his career versus Cleveland. He's 172-105 overall in his career. It's tied with Bill Parcells for the 15th most wins ever. Despite that, his teams have blown 17 double-digit second-half leads since he's taken over as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. That is the most since the NFL started tracking that stat in 1991. And Sunday's Week 1 loss to Buffalo was considered the 13th most improbable comeback for any team over the last decade, according to Amazon and ESPN's Next Gen Stats. And the other little nugget, Bull, you mentioned this yesterday, but
yeah,
Derrick Henry had 169 yards on 18 carries versus Buffalo. That brings his career rushing total in the NFL to 11,592 yards. That's still 32 yards short of his 4-year high school rushing total.
Insane.
The most prolific high school rusher, maybe
and he's the
of all
most
time.
prolific NFL rusher during his time, and he's still short of his high school total, which is, can you imagine being like some kid in high school and you have to tackle Derrick Henry? It's not like he wasn't big when he came in,
Grant Delpit says it's not that hard.
I got to say, guys.
That was tone deaf.
I know I'll be in the minority opinion on this. I think in the last few years, Harbaugh is one of the worst coaches in the league, and nobody pays attention to it. First of all, he has made some of the most egregious mistakes in the postseason in recent years.
That's true.
How many times have they had a terrible game plan in the playoffs? Terrible. Lamar gets all the blame for it, and Lamar deserves some blame.
He's also had clock management issues and
terrible
go for 1 or go for 2 issues.
And with that, it's like sometimes he's like insanely aggressive.
Yes.
And then sometimes he's extremely conservative, and you can't figure it out. Like punting last week. What were they doing? You're giving the ball to Josh Allen? You have Lamar, go for it. I don't understand. He does some wacky stuff sometimes.
He's unconventional, I think. I don't know if I'd say he's one of the worst, but
I think the last few years he's done a bad job.
Among the coaches that we've given genius credentials to, I think his are probably most in need of reevaluation. Because I'm with you, there are some moments where I'm like, what is he doing right now?
It's been a lot
both ways.
Yeah.
Overly aggressive and overly conservative.
It's weird.
I think what he is he's an impulsive guy, and I think whatever hits him in the moment, he just goes with it. And I think probably sometimes it warrants a conversation with his OC or DC or whomever.
It's a make or miss league. They said in basketball, it's risk reward league in football. Would I take John Harbaugh? Yeah. You see what his record is against us? He cooks. At the end of the day, you're going to make some calls that's kind of...
There's a lot of coaches with good records against us.
Very true.
Only one, and now Taylor might have a winning record against us. I don't know.
I remember, I'm old enough to remember when Hugh Jackson came in here as an offensive coordinator and put a masterful game. Yeah. And he had Andy Dalton. He put 40 on this one. I'm like, Hugh Jackson. Needless to say. But, sometimes you go with it, sometimes you don't. He makes some questionable decisions, but, I think that's part of his forte.
I think ultimately I agree with your thesis. Your thesis statement was, would I take him? Yeah. I don't even have to think a half second about that.
Sure,
give him to me. I think more than anything, and I get it, in-game decisions ultimately put the cherry on top of your coaching resume, but I also think it has a lot to do with the culture you set and getting the most out of your players. And I think he is at the top of that heap. He's in Andy Reid's category when it comes to player buy-in and just building the proper culture to win.